Hello, everybody, and welcome to Middle School GSA, the podcast where we talk about a variety of issues. I'm your host, Demigloom, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm joined by my co-host, Felonious Ferris.
Hello, I use they, them pronouns.
So, we have lost faith in the quality of this show, and we're going to go topicless. And, yeah, that's it. What do you want to talk about? How are you doing today? What is on your mind?
I'm okay. I've been watching One Piece.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I'm on episode 640.
How long have you been watching this show?
Probably like 3 months.
Jesus Christ. So you're averaging 200 episodes a month.
I guess.
That's
when you say it like that.
You're watching 200 episodes of this show every month. That's terrible.
Maybe it's been longer. Maybe it's been like 4 months.
4 months? Either way, man.
Yeah.
That's an insane.
Yeah.
It's an insane amount of time. That's 150 per month.
Yeah.
Did I do the right math?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it. I like One Piece. I like it a whole lot.
Do you have anything interesting to say about One Piece? Or is it just that you're watching One Piece and you've made it? Do you have a hot take you have to share?
I mean, I have so many hot takes about One Piece. But I kind of want to talk about them with Squeebo, mostly.
Oh, yeah. You guys just do that shit without me. Fuck that. I don't want to talk about One Piece for an hour.
When we do our next anime episode, me and Squeebo are going to talk about One Piece for an hour. And it's going to be great.
Is Squeebo going to be on the next anime episode? They did request to be on there.
Of course. Of course.
We're going to have to figure out how to make them sound decent, because their microphone is terrible.
Don't you have, 3 microphones?
No. None that are, usable. I have, dog shit, fucking...
Really?
I have, dog shit microphones that are absolutely god-awful that nobody should ever use, that are just sitting in piles of cords in bins, giant fucking bins in my basement. But I don't have any, actual, good usable mics. I have one.
But I have a dog shit microphone that you gave me.
Hey, don't disrespect my microphone. That microphone's been through a lot with me. Okay, I didn't even want to give it to you, honestly. I have a weird sentimental attachment to that microphone. It was I don't know, I recorded all my first pathetic podcasts with that microphone, everything. I recorded all my rap songs with that microphone, all types of shit. But no, the funny thing is that Squeebo has the same microphone as you. It's just a blue snowball mic, and they have a fucking sock on it, just like you do. But for some reason, they sound absolutely terrible all the time. I think it's literally just their setup.
Sock. I can get them the pair sock that I'm using on this microphone right now, and see if that makes a difference.
Okay.
It's a really thick sock.
Well, yeah, I guess we'll have Squeebo on Anime is Problematic Part 2.
But not it. We can do Anime is Problematic, and we love anime.
Okay.
I'd
have more fun on that than just the problematic thing, because I kind of said everything I needed to say regarding that.
Mm-hmm. I just have so much to say about anime that I could just keep talking about it forever. Including stuff that I think is problematic about it. So, and all of this stuff I think is equally important. So it tortures me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I could hypothetically just talk about problems with anime for hours and hours and hours and hours, but the thing that I really care about is the fucking actual, sex pest shit that's normalized in anime. Yeah. And I think I did a pretty good job explaining as to, how bad of an issue it is and why it's an issue on the first episode.
Yeah. But we also need to get to queer representation and why most of it is dog shit. And how representation of most people of color is dog shit. And how it's just anime does a terrible job of portraying minorities in general.
I don't even question bad queer representation at this point in my life. That's probably a bad thing to be super apathetic about, but I'm so used to all queer representation, especially trans representation, just being fucking awful. Just dog shit. it's either like the most like uh condescending like bullshit ever, right? Like the whole like just shoving it in your face that they're an ally and constantly making like the transness of a character like a huge like point, or it's just really transphobic and bad stereotypes. Usually, I mean, they don't really do that anymore. I think in Hollywood, if you want to make a trans joke, they're just gonna be like, nope, you can't do that because you'll get fucking canceled. But generally speaking, I think people's attitude and understanding of trans people is very negative, and I think trans people are one of the most hated demographics on Earth, and I think the extent to which we are oppressed is downplayed a lot.
Yes, but also there are specific cases of trans representation in anime that I personally really like. Japan isn't really at the correct place in its current social movements where it can just have a trans character, a good trans character who most of their story isn't about being trans.
Yeah.
Just because it's still such a novelty to have a trans character that isn't there to be made fun of.
There's a lot of trans coded characters like Felix Argyle and shit like that, which I find incredibly offensive, honestly, that they're going to, you know what I mean, like for their plot or like for whatever reason, like transness is important to their story, but they're also not going to bite the bullet and like admit that they're trans. You know what I mean? And like make the statement that hi, good trans person exists, but at the same time, that can basically be boiled down to just industry pressure and, you know, utilitarianism on behalf of the creators.
I think it definitely has a lot to do with censorship. I think that it's really difficult to have a character in an anime where it's like, this is our trans character and they're trans, and saying that very explicitly.
Are we talking like censorship like legally or like socially?
Just legally, there is quite a bit of censorship around gay stuff.
Yeah.
In anime.
Well,
like you aren't allowed to have boys kissing. Otherwise, it'll get taken off TV.
Yeah.
Which is why the kiss at the end of Yuri on Ice had to be like covered by someone's arm.
Fucking Japan has insane obscenity laws. Like I'm pretty sure like pornography is like illegal in Japan to like some extent, because like all pornography in Japan, like everything is pixelated. Not that I have looked at it myself, but you know.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But yeah, it is that you are legally required to censor even drawings that are pornographic. So yeah, it's kind of nuts, but there isn't any legal censorship around explicitly having trans characters.
Yeah.
But it is definitely a thing where no producers are going to pick that up. No producers are going to pick up a story that has an explicit trans character that isn't there to be made fun of. But we're getting closer and closer. Like a Wonder Egg Priority, for instance, which is a show that started out really extremely strong and then kind of went off the rails partway through. Still good, still really worth watching, highly recommend it. But Wonder Egg Priority has a canon trans male character, which is huge because usually because, you know, cis people are only threatened by trans women, and because they're misogynists and don't take women as a serious
we had a
threat.
whole discussion about that.
Yeah. So they only make fun of trans women, and so there's like no trans male characters. But Wonder Egg Priority does have one. I think he might even say, like, I was born in the wrong body, or I'm a boy in a girl's body, something like that. But he literally wears a jacket that has the trans pride flag on it. And
oh shit.
Part of his thing is dealing with suicidality around being trans.
Of course.
But he's just a side character. He's kind of fleeting. And then one of a member of the main cast is actually pretty. There's a lot of debate around whether she's canonically trans feminine or is somehow meant to be a parallel to the trans experience. I mean, there are definitely parallels with her story and the trans experience, but yeah, it's really interesting. And yeah, one of the many reasons that I think people should still watch Wonder Egg Priority, even if it kind of went haywire.
When it comes to like illustrating the trans experience, like especially like for cis people, like I don't know, I just feel like very apathetic regarding that. I feel like cis people are just never gonna fucking get it. Like no, like I don't know any cis people that truly get it that are like over the age of like 23.
Mm-hmm. I think that a way there's ways to explain it that I think are pretty easy to understand, but I think that there's a lot of people that have the idea that they don't need to understand it in order to be supportive, which is completely right.
I disagree.
They just have to understand that.
Well, I don't disagree. I don't disagree necessarily. I don't think you should be. I don't think you have to have an understanding of it to be supportive. But this is a huge like thing that I push. This is like my fucking political platform. Is I want people to understand ethics and why things are good or why things are bad, and people who blindly accept ethics that are handed to them by society are fucking peasants. They don't get it, and it's a really bad thing that we don't possess the logic to justify basic moral principles because they don't have that strong foundation. In order to truly uphold principles and follow them to the logical conclusion, they have to have a strong foundation of consistent logic behind them. And when it's just like, this is bad because it's bad, like it's fucking empty.
Okay,
you're firing blanks.
I think we had a misunderstanding. I think that there's people who are like, I'm not really sure why you felt the need to transition, but I know that you felt that you needed to, and I'm going to be supportive of you. And that's kind of what I meant.
Yeah, I think that's unfortunately kind of the best we're going to get out of a lot of people.
I think one really good way of describing it to cis people that I've heard about is the feeling of hearing a recording of your own voice and how it just kind of makes your skin crawl and how it just sounds wrong. And how a lot of trans people with dysphoria feel that just about their entire existence, just their entire physical body, their voices, the way that other people address them, all of that. Just feel this sense of innate wrongness. And I think that that's pretty easy to understand. I think the big thing why people just need to be like, oh, well, I'm going to be supportive no matter if I understand exactly what you're feeling to make you transition or not. I think that's a pretty good way to give them an inkling, just because it's something relatable. I think a lot of people know what it's like to hear your own voice recorded.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I definitely agree that there is a problem that the only trans characters we have to be transcoded. But I think that there's ways of gradually getting people to accept something, and part of that can be starting with coded characters that aren't really explicitly trans. And there's ways that you see that idea implemented in all sorts of media, and I think we could do a whole episode dedicated to it. And also, I might have some hot takes, so I'm not even sure if I want to talk about it.
Hot takes about just trans representation in anime in general, or just like coded characters?
No, about coded characters and the way, like, before social upheaval happens around acceptance of a certain demographic, you'll usually see characters that are meant to get you to sympathize with this demographic. And the utility of this you can debate about it, but it is. We shouldn't get into this because we should have a dedicated episode.
No, that's a really complicated thing too, because I remember specifically when I have to explain the validity of trans people to cis people, like the first thing I have to do is show them like a super well passing like trans woman and be like, does this look like a woman to you? Like you have to like tiptoe your way towards like the explicit like trans women are women thing, no matter like, you know what I mean, like the explicit like hard stance. You kind of have to fucking like navigate their own flawed understanding of how things work. But I understand what you're saying regarding coded characters. Maybe this is just the Marxist in me. I fucking hate just sitting here and watching things like slowly happen. Like I kind of just want to put a gun to everybody's head and tell them trans women are women, but obviously that's not going to work. I don't know exactly what the actual way to get the population.
We can't talk about this anymore because if we do, I'm not going to be able to, because I have so many strong feelings and I want to talk about it so bad, but we need to have a dedicated episode where the episode we just talk about that and it isn't just a meandering thing.
Okay.
Do
you think we're going to disagree a lot on that episode?
No, but I think that if people took things, I'm going to say out of context, it might piss them off. I'll like test run some of the opinions to you in the DMs.
Okay. New segment
to make sure
the Demigloom test.
Yeah. Just to make sure, because I've mentioned before that I'm autistic, but something that's weird is growing up, I'd have these experiences where I'd ask a question and I'd be like, well, why don't we think this? And then people would have this like violent, angry response that I even dared to ask that question, and I'd just be sitting there like, it really feels so completely wrong to you guys that you guys are mad at me for even asking this question. And that happens so much that now I'm terrified of of having hot takes or suggesting new things without like running it by someone first, especially publicly.
Yeah, if you're going to talk about politics publicly, I think you kind of just have to accept that A, you're going to get taken out of context to spread incredibly false narratives about what you believe in, and B, no matter what, people are going to meet you with raw hatred, and this is kind of how it works. We haven't really gotten a whole lot of hate from this podcast, except for people just calling us cringe. But I think if we continue to expand...
Who's calling us cringe? I want to meet them. I want to talk to them.
Squeebo keeps sending this podcast to like their fucking servers full of like gamer boys.
Hi, gamer boys. How are you doing?
They're not watching.
I want them to watch.
No.
Poor Squeebo.
Why are you saying poor Squeebo?
Because Squeebo thinks that we have a good podcast, and then they're sending the podcast to people who are absolutely not our demographic and probably getting some heat for it.
Well, they're incredibly aware. They knew exactly what was going to happen from the beginning. It's not like they expected positive reinforcement.
Okay. We really need. We need to have haters, Demigloom. Start promoting us on /poll on 4chan.
See, I like where you're going with this, but I'm so fucking. You got to remember with the negative XP drama, fucking
yes,
like hundreds of people. Like I had hundreds of haters just constantly flooding every fucking app that I had with just like the most heinous shit ever. Just flooded. Like I literally couldn't like post anything anywhere without like the comments literally just being like 41, 41, 41, 41, 41, kill yourself, negative XP. Like they'll even send like negative XP songs like a fucking K-pop stan. And it's just like I dealt with that for so long that I just don't want it anymore. And I've successfully gotten those people away by literally just blocking the fuck out of people. Like literally just block everyone. And this is I'm publicly endorsing this, by the way. Block anyone who pisses you off on the internet. There's no use in fucking arguing with them or letting your comments get flooded by haters. Like literally just block them.
Yeah.
Like engage with people who want to engage with you in good faith. Engage with people who are actually going to have a productive conversation with you. Just don't fucking argue with haters. It's a waste of time. I've wasted hours of my life doing that. Unless it's really funny. If it's really funny, then do it.
Yes. I want us to have an episode where we bring haters on. And for that to happen, we need haters. I want to bring on have an episode where like the Ben Shapiro strat, where we bring on people who are completely unprepared to argue with us and then completely destroy them and team up on them.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, if you want just like Nazis who hate trans people, I have a lot of people that I know. That sounds really bad. I'm like, yeah, I know a guy. But like throughout the whole like negative XP thing, like some of my haters were really fucking funny, and I never unfriended them or blocked them. I just muted them. And every now and then, I'll poke the bear with a stick, just to feel something. And it's really funny. Like the time I had, oh boy, I'm gonna acknowledge this, the Trigger Warning podcast hosted by Demigloom, where I debated a bunch of Nazis and defended trans rights. Like all those, like most of those people are still in my contacts. Like I could bring them on anytime I want. I just don't want to anymore. It's just not fun. Like I'm burned out. See, you haven't I had people literally harassing me for like months and months and months, and just like any fucking VC that I hopped in was like, yo, that's fucking Demigloom, the insert slurs here, and just ridiculed me for so much time.
Yeah.
That it's just I don't care anymore. And I sound like I'm playing the victim. I actually don't care. Like it's not something that actually upsets me anymore, but it's something that I just don't want to do anymore. Totally burned out. It's not fun. Yeah. There's no like shock to that anymore, because I've had an audience of hundreds of Nazis at one point, and it wasn't very fun.
Yeah. I understand, and we don't have to, but kind of related, I got kind of an inkling of not quite as bad and not for as long, but I did get an inkling of that genre of hater where they just come at you in droves. And this is actually a pretty funny story. So this was back when I was on TikTok, which I'm not anymore.
Did you make TikToks? Did you post?
A little bit.
That's
but
a yes.
Not really.
That's a yes. That was the hesitant yes, a reluctant yes. Let me find your TikTok real quick.
No, fuck off. You won't find me anyway because you don't know the username.
I'll figure it out.
Absolutely won't.
I'm a little internet detective, okay? I've solved a lot of mysteries that people thought I couldn't solve.
I'm gonna get back into this account and okay. But back on the topic, the reason I'm not on TikTok anymore is because I have a super strong sense of justice, and I'll kind of feel obligated to engage with people who I feel have a really, really incorrect viewpoint. And partially for fun, partially because I feel obligated to.
This is another example of you saying something like verbatim what I say, but it's sounding way better coming out of your mouth. I'll be like, yeah, I like to talk to Nazis all the time. But like you word it in a way that sounds like much, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, I've people with very incorrect viewpoints. I feel an obligation to engage with them. I envy you.
So TikTok found this out about me, right? So the TikTok algorithm started feeding me videos that it knew would piss me off so that I would comment and engage with people. And then the algorithm would send me more of stuff that was going to piss me off, which is hilarious, but also made TikTok pretty unusable for me. So that's why I don't use it anymore. But but what happened? The greatest culmination of this was, this is something that Squeebo knows. Not exactly what happened to me, but the topic that it's around. So there's this comic, right? It's called Killing Stalking. It's called Killing Stalking.
Yep. I didn't want to talk about that, but go on.
And essentially, if you have no idea what Killing Stalking is, it's a yaoi, where a guy gets kidnapped and is like forced to be this other guy's housewife and like gets both his legs broken constantly. And it's really terrible. And it's a porn. There's a lot of really graphic rape scenes. And,
yeah, can we not talk about that, please? Can we move along quickly? You didn't have to say the word.
Okay. But there was this content creator who I was following for a while. They were a cosplayer, and he decided to cosplay Sang-woo from Killing Stalking.
And who is Sang-woo?
I think he's the killer guy. I think he actually cosplayed both of them, both the killer guy and the victim guy.
Okay.
And I commented on this, like, dude, this is really disappointing, and I am a really big fan of your art, but I just can't get down with this. And this is something, anyway. And then what happened was he did one of those things where you reply to a comment with a video.
Yeah.
And what he did was essentially like scream crying, like, how could you say that to me? That's so terrible. And like, how dare you not like me because I like this terrible thing. And something that Killing Stalking fans will always say is, oh, it's not a yaoi, it's a horror. Killing Stalking is a horror, but it is also a yaoi. And anyone who says it's just a horror is kind of in blatant denial, including the author. The author claims that it's just a horror, but then, like, retweets fan art of the characters in, like, a fluffy domestic setting, and it's like, this is... But anyway, so they made this response to me, right? And, it got 75,000 views of all Killing Stalking fans. And I was harassed continuously for about 3 days. They found my other social media and harassed me there, and like told me really, really kind of unspeakable things. That it's funny because I was like, liking this thing has moral implications about your character. And then they went and confirmed all of those suspicions by saying this shit to me.
Yeah.
It was kind of insane. They, I had a small handful of videos, and they flooded the comments of all of them with hate and, found the Instagram that my mom follows and told me all of these awful things. And literally I had to reach out because I'm sure you know, but sometimes there's just too many of them to block.
Yeah.
It's just, you can block who you see, but there's always going to be more people. And I had to go to the content creator and be like, dude, your psycho fans have been harassing me around the clock for 3 days, and I'm at the end of my fucking rope. Tell them to stop. And he did. It was, like, very begrudging, though. It was like, No one come after this person and harass them for what they said. Yeah, without it was really silly because I did tell him the terrible things that they were saying to me, but it's obvious that he didn't actually give a shit that people were saying that to me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I would
That's
if my fans did something like that, like if I made a statement like shit talking somebody on the internet and my fans went after them like that fucking brutally, I would be so disappointed in myself for attracting that kind of person.
Yeah. But, at the end of the day, it pretty much confirmed all of my hypotheses about the moral implications of being a fan of killing stalking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it was long enough ago that it's just funny now, but it was pretty fucking bad for the time period that it was happening.
Yeah.
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 So that was just for 3 days, and not all of them. There were like a very small handful of people that were saying truly despicable, awful things to me. And then there was a much larger majority who were like, "You're a terrible person for saying that to them. How could you say that they're not a good person for liking killing stalking and saying that you won't like their videos anymore?"
So you said 75,000 views, and this is a TikToker who cosplayed killing stalking characters.
Yeah.
And they also made an apology video.
Not really an apology.
Okay, yeah, I know, not an apology, but they just told their fans, listen, you guys know what to do. You guys know what to do. Do it. I laid out, I milked those details out of Ferris. Go find it. Go find their TikTok.
Please don't. I'm gonna delete it before anyone can.
Okay, buddy.
None of you were allowed.
Listen, man, yeah. I've suffered through the existence of my YouTube channel that I started in 2014, and I'm just jealous of people who don't have a catalog of disgusting cringe content that people can hold over their head. I was a fucking Minecraft YouTuber, was I? I don't know. I made like a couple Minecraft videos and like toy reviews and shit. Most cringe
That's cute, though.
Content ever. It's awful. It's so bad. I'm glad that it's still up. Like I wouldn't delete it if I had the chance. In fact, I'm mad at myself for having deleted a fair amount of its content. Like there is sentimental value there, but it's also just like what you said about the sound of your own voice. Like there's nothing worse than the sound of your own voice when you were a child. Or when you were younger, like significantly younger. It's like, God, I really... And the funny thing is, I say like frick and heck on that YouTube channel all the time because I was horrified that my parents would like sit through all my videos and like look for me to say something dirty or whatever. Because of course, I was a middle schooler. My parents didn't know that I swore, or I thought they didn't know that I swore. But in middle school, I was like saying fuck like every other word. And it's just really funny how the channel doesn't reflect that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh god, there's FNAF content on there too. That's the worst part. Five Nights at Freddy's.
We should play Five Nights at Freddy's and upload it to YouTube.
Which one?
All
those
of
games.
them.
Those games fucking suck, dude. And that's not just me coping. That's not just me coping because I don't like Scott Cawthon. But like I genuinely don't think the games are really good. I think they're fun. They're a little bit fun. So I guess they might be worth playing. But it's art. The appeal of FNAF is the art, and obviously there's the lore, which I've watched a fuck ton of game theory videos back in the day. Like I was super into that, but at this point in my life, it's really just like the visuals and the art and just the general like situational horror of the security guard position. The gameplay itself is like nothing special.
All true statements. I'd actually even go a step further and say that every FNAF game is bad. They're all bad games. They all suck. They're all lazy. What can I say?
It's hard to judge them so harshly because he was just like a humble, like little programmer who just like, it was.
And then he donated a bunch of his money to Newt Gingrich. The money that he made off of FNAF to Newt Gingrich.
He was just a little guy, and then he donated all his money to what is his name? Newt Gingrich.
Newt Gingrich.
Gingrich. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
anything about him except the really
He,
bad
like-
policies that were screenshotted in the
He-
replies of Scott Cawthon's tweets.
He unironically, argued when he ran for president back in the Obama re-election days, and he just ran in the primaries. I don't know why I remember all this, but he'd argue that in order to pay for school, poor students should do janitorial work.
Oh my god.
To pay for their elementary school education, which is so transparently targeting and wanting students who are people of color to be subservient to richer students.
See, this is just
most of which will be white.
The most explicitly bourgeois thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
That's
he's super mega cringe. He might be dead. I really hope so. He's one of those guys.
It's not often that your oppressors just laugh in your face like that, and it's always really funny and also just fucking depressing when that is the case, because it reminds you that this is what a large fraction of our population actually believes in and just doesn't say.
Yeah, I mean, Newt Gingrich, he wasn't the nominee. Mitt Romney beat Newt Gingrich for a reason, because he was kind of a cringe lord.
Mitt Romney got fucking destroyed by Obama in that rap battle.
Epic rap battles of history?
Yeah. I don't know if you know this. I'm a huge fan of epic rap battles of history.
I love that. I think that that's a great thing to be a fan of. And this is part of why I want to play FNAF and record it, because I just love the FNAF fandom. In their what can I say? Autistics, they're my target demographic. I want them to watch my videos. And
our target demographic is people who at some point in their life felt compelled to draw a Sonic the Hedgehog character. That's our demographic.
Let's fucking go! Absolutely.
Demographic of which I am a part of, by the way.
That's another fandom I love. I love the Sonic fandom. I think that they're so funny.
See, I love all these cringe fandoms, except some of them are. You'll also obviously it's a small minority of them, but for some reason the most heinous fucking people on the internet are a part of these fandoms. They always are. I
don't know if I am diagnosed with autism, but I don't know if this is too problematic to say, but I might just say it anyway, and you can cut it out if it's too bad. But I think that is a thing where autistic people, 90% of the time, or 99 or 99.9% of the time, are awesome people. But then every once in a while, there is someone for whom that stereotype about not having any empathy is really true. And the idea didn't just come out of nowhere that autistic people don't have empathy. There's multiple reasons for that, but it is an actual thing. Obviously not all autistic people lack empathy, but it's one of the bajillion possible symptoms. And I think that it's also a really easy way to become isolated socially.
Yeah.
That early, I don't want to use incel lingo, but early childhood rejection, and just scorn from your peers has a real lasting psychological impact.
100%. This is a huge reason why I'm just going to say it. All my friends throughout my life, not all of them, a lot of my friends throughout my life have been autistic, and there's a reason why I relate to them. And I think a big part of it is because most people with autism throughout their childhood don't understand nor care to understand the social pressures that push them to be a certain way and uphold a standard of coolness or whatever the fuck is popular at the moment. And those are the people who were always fucking outcasted and didn't care to engage in the performative nature of, like I said, coolness. And that's why autistic people are fucking awesome. That's why
Yeah.
I love autistic. There, I said it. I love people with autism. I think autism leads people like to a good path oftentimes. And as we said, there are exceptions, obviously. But I genuinely believe autism is a condition. It's a state of being that within our current society has led people to a path of stronger intelligence, moral character, and a lot of just attributes that I personally value in another person. And that's why all my friends are autistic.
It is a real symptom of autism, and it's one that I experience, which is hyper empathy, just feeling too much empathy to the point where it can actually be really overwhelming. And it's and then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have people who don't feel enough or any empathy. And
I suffer
think,
from crippling empathy, man. That's probably another reason why I relate to people with autism.
You're fucking autistic, Demigloom.
I'm not. I'm genuinely not.
You
autistic.
really are. You totally are.
I'm an honorary autist.
Okay. Good compromise. Honorary autist.
Autist and people with autism fucking love me. They tell me like I can say the R slur and shit. They're like, yeah, you're one of us, even if you're not actually autistic. Like straight up. There's just these weird demographics of people that just really relate to me like strongly, and they don't care that I'm not one of them. They just let me be, you know what I mean, be one with their demographic, and I think it's pretty fucking cool.
Wow. But yeah, I love back to what we were talking about. I love cringe fandoms. I love bronies. I love FNAF fans. Do you
know how many
Sonic
brony
fans.
murderers there have been?
Yeah, I think
that's a lot of bronies have killed people. I find that hilarious.
That is pretty funny, but I think that fandom in particular, the type of person who gets into that fandom generally receives a lot of that social scorn, a lot of that rejection and early childhood rejection that can cause a lot. So this social isolation, and a lot of people cope with all of that by just saying fuck literally everyone.
Yeah.
And that can lead you down really, really dark paths. And you can see that with incels, with like just that whole 4chan demographic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the reason why bronies particularly like experience a lot of social isolation is because we live in a society that is, especially with children's franchises and toys and such, are so explicitly gendered that if you as a man say if you say you like My Little Pony or have an interest in My Little Pony, even if you just like the show, you don't even want to fucking buy pony toys, you just like the show, you are making a statement about gender roles in society because society tells you can't like this.
Yeah.
That's why I wasn't a My Little Pony fan throughout my childhood. I loved that fucking show, but I've never told anybody about it. I never, you know what I mean? Never once did I like watch it in front of anybody else. It was literally like, I don't know how to describe it. It's not like you're a marginalized person, but it has like actual, like, I think going through that, like being told that you have to exhibit these characteristics because of your gender. I think that can be very traumatizing. And fucking Republicans say that we're trying to groom kids into our fucking gender theory when literally they are psychologically torturing us.
Yeah. And I think it's also worth pointing out that there are a lot of trans femme My Little Pony fans.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So many. And then the ones that either super mega repress or the ones that aren't trans femme become Nazis.
The ones, well, most of them they super mega repress and then become Nazis. That's what happened with do you know what was his name? Randy Stair. Do you know who Randy Stair is?
No.
he was this guy, and I feel strange using any pronouns to describe him, but that is what he went by. Randy Stair was this. Just let me make sure. Let me make sure I'm using the right name. I'm not saying some innocent person's name when describing a fucking murderous psychopath. Yeah, his name is Randy Stair. He was this guy who well, he was a brony. He liked My Little Pony and shit, but he like specifically he genuinely like believes like we're talking like Chris Chan levels of delusion. This guy genuinely believed that he was a ghost girl from Danny Phantom, and that life was awaiting him upon his death. And like, I don't know. All I'm trying to say is that repressing leads people to crazy fucking places. He was like
Yeah.
I don't know if he was a Nazi, but he was a white supremacist for sure.
Yeah.
He was just
I
like
think that
he made like the okay. I just want to share something funny about this guy. He he killed a bunch of his coworkers at a grocery store, and it was fucking tragic. And this guy, the one thing that he wanted to release before his death was an animation, and he tried to hire voice actors for this fucking Danny Phantom school shooting animation, and none of them did it.
oh
Like
my
literally
god.
nobody did it because it was literally like a glorified like school shooting with like these ghost girls from Danny Phantom, where they're like, yeah, that's what you get for bullying me. Like,
Wow.
I just
Wow.
repressing your gender identity leads you to some pretty dark places, to say the least. And cringe,
Um,
like when I say like the most heinous people are in cringe fandoms, like that's what I'm talking about. Is like for
yeah.
one reason or another, like these cringe fandoms are appealing to like people with literally no empathy.
Yeah. It I also oh god, what was I going to say? I love Warrior Cats kids. Love furries in general. Huge fan of furries.
Warrior cats?
You don't know Warrior
Hold
Cats?
on.
God, this is the trans masculine
Oh
experience versus the
no,
trans feminine
no,
experience.
I do know what these are. I had friends who were females that ended up becoming trans masks later in life who were
It
into that.
is
Yeah,
it's a trans mask thing, I will
yeah.
say. Absolutely. And I love but people who are like really into it, especially into adulthood, are always so based and so talented, and I love them so much. There's still a lot of animators who their entire channel is doing Warrior Cats animations who I still subscribe to on YouTube, and I still watch their videos because they're just insanely talented artists. Yeah, I think it's the common denominator here is autism.
Yeah. Except me.
Yeah.
I'm the one.
Except you. You're the one exception, Demigloom.
I genuinely do not believe I have autism.
Well, Demigloom, did you know that when I was a child, my parents were actually told that it wasn't possible that I had autism, so they never tested me for it. And now, as a 20-year-old, I am diagnosed with autism.
Listen, I'm choosing to believe that I'm not autistic. I'm
Okay.
choosing
This is fine.
to roll with
This is
this
fine.
bias.
This is fine.
And I don't know. It's not something that's
This is
been a part
fine.
of my identity. I fucking, can I just,
I mostly just bring it up to tease you.
I know. And it's funny. I don't care. Um, can I, I just want to say something about autism really quickly.
Yes.
The way people treated my friends who had autism when I was a kid, it was just obviously there's like bullying and shit, but more particularly from like I guess supportive people, like my family, like even like my family members, like they told me, like my teachers and family members, like many people, they told me like they were like so proud of me for like being like a supportive like friend to this autistic kid who I was best friends with
Oh
from
my
like
god.
third grade
People
to
told
seventh
me
grade.
that too.
They were
People told
like,
me that too.
they were like, listen, guy, listen, man, like that boy doesn't have anybody. He's a pathetic loser, and you know you're obviously they didn't say that, but like that's it. It seems like their perception of them was that they're just like such losers that nobody wants to hang out with them. And I'm just like, look, he's fucking awesome. Okay, he's a great person, and I love him because of that, and I want to hang out with him because he's really fucking cool. And it's like this like weird like thing. They were like really just proud of me for being friends with someone with autism, and I didn't like that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's extremely patronizing treating anyone who would be friends with an autistic person, especially an autistic person who can't mask. Um,
Yeah.
Treating that like as a heroic act in and of itself is so fucking ableist and so
Yeah.
patronizing, and I hate it. And it's especially ironic because I was definitely that kid where I'd be cool to kids who were visibly disabled or autistic and couldn't mask it. And I'd be like one of the only people to be nice to them. And then like I'd hear like a teacher would call home about it, and then one of my parents would be like, you know, I am so proud of you for doing this, and that is so
Yeah.
good. And it's also a thing that whenever I saw someone who was alone, I would very consciously be like, okay, I'm gonna be friends with that person now. And
I've
that
really
is
you do that. That's interesting.
that
I
it,
had no idea.
um and I think that is a good trait to have. I think that it's good to see someone who's being excluded, and go, okay, I'm gonna go up to this person and become friends with them because it's really fucking sucks to be alone like that. And it's a feeling that I know personally, which is why I felt so strongly. I've always felt so strongly about going and seeing people who are sad and alone and just picking them up by the scruff of their neck and putting them in my inventory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just when you like say you're like proud of somebody for being friends with someone with autism, it almost implies that they're less deserving of friendship and stuff. And it's like
Yeah.
as if like I'm like carrying like extra baggage and I'm like doing something I don't have to do or like I shouldn't have to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, dude, he's fucking awesome. These people are fucking awesome. And it's like it's the same attitude that people like when they talk to somebody who's like uh very clearly like disabled just from like their speech patterns or like the way they walk or whatever, you know what I mean? Just shit like
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't know. Um a lot like you said, people who can't mask. A lot of people who their disability is very visible. People will like act so fucking patronizing to them like they're fucking idiots. They'll be like, "Hey buddy, do you want to go over here?" And like just the way they talk to them. And that same attitude is reflected when people are like, "Oh man, I'm so proud of you for being friends with that person." And it's, I don't know. I'm talking in circles again, which is something I do chronically.
This is actually, I have a kind of funny story about this. So, even though I wasn't diagnosed with autism until I was 20, I was
Holy shit,
diagnosed
you're
with,
fucking 20.
yes,
I forgot
yes,
about
I'm
that.
20. But I was diagnosed with ADHD as like a fucking infant. And yeah, it was, I had very male presenting ADHD, which was the reason I got diagnosed so early. And because of that, I was in special ed for quite a while. Not like I was in a completely different classroom that was all with disabled kids. That
Yeah.
my schools didn't have that. It was just a thing where like I'd have a person who would come pull me out of class and do stuff with me, and then like someone where there would be a room after school that I could go to and have someone help me with my homework, stuff like that. And especially like just having someone hovering around me all the time to make sure I was getting shit done, because otherwise I would just draw or read, and wouldn't pay attention to my schoolwork at all. For the most part, they failed miserably in getting me on task, but they tried. Props to them for that. But because of this, I think that people who like had never spoken to me really thought that I was like severely disabled. Even though
I don't even like the term
I'm
severely disabled.
like extreme, very impaired, and
Yeah.
really, yeah. And so for a while in middle school, there was this girl and every time she passed by me in the hallway, she'd be like, yeah, it was a girl. And I think that she had the best of intentions. I'll say that. But every time she passed me in the hallway, she'd go like, "Give me a high five."
Oh my god.
And I'd be like, in my head, I'd be like, that's really weird, but whatever. If she wants a high five, I'm gonna give her a high five. And she did this every single time we passed in the hallway. And it didn't occur to me until years later that, she probably had this vision of who I was that just is not who I am at all.
Yeah.
That's hilarious to me. And I truly hope that she's doing well out there. But yeah, that's a thing that happened.
That's so fucking weird, but it's the shit that I've seen.
Really weird.
I've seen that myself too. Even with like adults to autistic kids, like school staff members.
Mm-hmm.
This is the autism episode. That's what this is.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about other stuff at the beginning. I don't remember what it was, but
yeah. Something.
But yeah, it's silly. I've had some silly experiences. And it seems like a lot of, like, before I was diagnosed, almost everyone except me knew.
Yeah.
Where, like, when I was pursuing diagnosis, funny enough, it was some autistic friends of mine that were like, "You almost certainly have autism and should really get tested." But after that point, I'd start. Oh shit! Beep that. But after they started telling me like, "Oh, you should really check that out," I started asking people in my life, like, "Do you think I have autism?" And the answer was, like, probably, I won't say 9 times out of 10, even though that's the saying, probably like 7 times out of 10, they'd say maybe or probably, which is really funny. Yeah. And it definitely affected me socially for a really long time. I kind of had to learn very quickly at a certain point how to mask a certain way and how to present myself in a way that's likable. Because naturally, and this isn't something that I can repress fully, it's just in my nature, but I'm a cringe lord. I'm such a cringe lord. And people have historically always hated me for it. And it caused a lot of problems where, very obvious lies that were spread about me were believed because people were looking for an excuse to hate me because I was a cringe lord. And by extension, because I'm autistic. And this is even...
all this time. It's happening to me right now.
And there's a lot of spaces like our school, where everyone fancies themselves so liberal and so progressive. But when it comes down to it, they really are bigoted and they're completely performative. And this is a big, in this huge social justice boom era when I was going to school, that's when the bullying was the worst for me. Just a lot of really shitty, judgmental people looking for an excuse to feel better than other people. And yeah, it's really frustrating because a lot of these people would self-identify as being allies to neurodivergent people or wouldn't, like, they're not the kind of person that would ever admit to disliking people for being autistic.
They probably wouldn't even admit it to themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. But nevertheless, absolutely a thing. And I really, see, that's part of the reason why I kind of just want to shout to the world. I'm diagnosed with autism because it makes. See, of course, bullying me was always wrong, but in a weird way, it makes it feel even more heinous. Like, people truly were just harassing me for being disabled. And yeah, I really, really hope that all of those fuckers, see me talking about it and go, oh, holy shit. I'm
Yeah,
a
they won't
terrible
though.
person. They
They'll
won't.
never
They won't.
they'll never admit that they exhibit is the fucking word of the day, but they'll never admit that they exhibit any amount of bigotry. None of them ever will.
Yeah.
I've seen this overwhelmingly. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I think there have been a few cis women in my life who felt extremely uncomfortable and threatened by my presence because I am very obviously somebody who has a penis and I identify as a woman and wish to be categorized among them. But they were the people that shared the trans women are women infographics on Instagram, and they were people who were trans accepting in theory. And I think that they had a sort of, I think that their brain would just try to come up with another reason for disliking me
Yeah.
rather than just because they'll never admit that, like they will, like a supposed ally will never admit, like, yeah, a huge fucking AMAB trans woman walking into the women's restroom makes me uncomfortable. And part of me really just wants people to admit that to themselves and
Yeah.
ask themselves why and question that. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, the performative activism is the root of all evil. And
So true.
it's bad. It's really bad. Because, and this is what I said earlier. I don't know if this was in the scrapped recording or this recording, but I said something about people attempting to enforce morals that they can't logically justify.
Yeah.
I know that's like a debate bro take. Like, I'm the person who's like who asks people to debate me every time, but I really think it is important, if you believe something is wrong, to understand why it is wrong, why people do that, why you shouldn't do that. And performative activism is a perfect example of people attempting to uphold certain moral standards but without actually understanding the point of them.
Yeah.
And bullying people for being autistic or being uncomfortable when a trans woman walks into the women's restroom.
Yeah. And it's definitely, people enjoy the aesthetic of being activists.
Of course.
And enjoy the aesthetic of being progressive, but they aren't actually down with it. They don't. No. It really, and this is actually you said earlier that you just really like and get along with autistic people. And I think part of the reason might be is a lot of us have difficulty, like, seeing things from other people's perspective, like just intrinsically, and there's things where, like, as a kid, I'd ask questions where I'd be like, why is this thing a certain way? I said this earlier, but why is this thing a certain way, and why isn't it this other way instead? And people would blow up at me because they were so angry that I didn't just inherently know this. But I think that people blowing up at you and being really angry at you for not just inherently understanding things, I think that it helps us grow into better people in a way. At a certain level, it was really traumatic and still affects me. But on the other hand, I've gotten really used to hearing people out and changing my behavior once I've learned why I'm wrong. And I think that it does me a few favors. I won't say that being autistic and these experiences make me a better person, because obviously that's dumb. But I think that it's just this weird experience that ends up being useful.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I still think it's not a good. I still think you shouldn't blow up at people. There's always a better alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Always a more productive way to get your message across. I think another reason why I get along with people with autism so well, or relate to them so well, is because performative bullshit is something that oftentimes autistic people don't even care about or don't even wish to engage in.
Yeah.
Like the performative activism bullshit. Like it's all of that shit. Like the majority of people who are like autistic, or I guess obviously autism's a spectrum, and we're all on the spectrum to some degree. There's the whole fucking
Don't say
philosophical
that.
question of it.
Don't say that.
Well, if you're all the way, if you're on the far left of the spectrum, which is not autistic at all, that technically you're on the spectrum on the end of not autistic, right? But I think we agree that the majority of people are at least like 0.00001% autistic, right? Isn't that the thing?
I think no. I think that it's
Well, autism is just
of...
it's just if it's just
Hold
like
on.
a set of things where if it's becomes life dominating enough or like mind
There you
dominating
go.
enough, then it's considered autism.
There you go. That's the correct statement.
Yeah.
There's certain traits that are considered, once you have all of these traits or most of these traits to a certain degree, you are autistic. And a lot of people will have these traits very mildly, or like have one of these traits, but won't have enough of the other traits to be considered autistic.
Yeah. And what I'm saying is it's a meter, like once it's full.
No, that's also not true.
Well, that's literally what you just said.
No.
Is that if you exhibit them to if you exhibit these characteristics to this extent, then it's considered autism.
That's not what a spectrum is. So what you're thinking of is like a gradient, where like we go from white to black and then there's this gray scale in between. That's a gradient. A spectrum would be like a full spectrum of color, like when you think about the color wheel.
Yes.
Where we have all of these colors and they blend into each other and interact with each other, and then we have all of our colors that we can see. And it's not like a sliding scale where you go like you inch further and further and then ooh, you're autistic. And it's also it's that the thinking of it as a gradient is isn't super helpful, also because it ends up justifying some ableist ideas, like the idea that you can be less autistic or more autistic. Like there are people who can speak fluently, and people who are autistic who you would never be able to tell just by speaking to them or by sharing a space with them that they are autistic. But when you look closer at their day-to-day functioning, they might really struggle with like executive dysfunction, where someone who may seem completely fine and normal on one hand is on the other hand really, really struggling. And we think of people like people with autistic people with like who are effective where they have a lower IQ. We think of that as like that's the most autistic you can be, but that's just not. That's just the low IQ. That's the problem. And it's weird. That's why we say spectrum. Because it's
I am well aware that it's not a fucking gradient. For the love of God.
Well, that's what you described. It's what you described.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that in terms of like how we determine, I'm talking about how we determine it. I'm not even saying like as far as fundamental characteristics go. I'm just saying like as far as how we determine it, it's generally in like the perception of autism, right? Is generally like it's obviously so many different factors. Like we could not list them in an hour. There's so many fucking factors that are all life dominating in their own way. But the way like we society have decided whether or not you have autism it is based in to some extent this idea of to what extent do you exhibit these characteristics? To what extent is it life dominating? To what extent is it affecting your ability to, I mean, that's literally the definition of like a disability, right? Is so it's like like a brain or physical characteristic that deviates from the norm that is hindering your ability to participate in society, right?
Yes, but it's also it's the thing that needs to be really highlighted is that it's having all of these symptoms together and at a certain level of severity or impairing you to a certain degree. And all of that together is autism. So you can have one trait and that wouldn't make you a little bit autistic. That would just
No.
make you have that one trait.
Yeah.
That's
But I'm
so
saying
that's
if we're
that's
what I'm trying
that's
to
what
say
I'm
is that what I'm trying to say is that autism isn't in reality like it's not like a fucking like physical thing that's in your body. It's I don't know how to explain my position. I don't think I explained it very well, but I also think you really misunderstood what I was trying to say.
well, I think that your intent behind it was probably really well thought out. It's just that you used some specific language that is kind of harmful, that like, oh, we're all a little bit autistic. That's the problem. Those kind of sayings.
When I say we're all a little bit autistic, what I really mean is we all exhibit these characteristics to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So the definition of to what extent these and I know that's not a fucking gradient. I know that there's multiple factors that you have to consider. I understand all that. I've known that for a very long time. What I'm trying to say is what exactly is autistic? You know what I mean? The line between being somebody who has autism and somebody who is just exhibiting a set of characteristics to a certain extent it's a socially constructed idea that revolves around society, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where that is exactly. So what I'm trying to I don't even remember what the actual fucking point was. That was like a subtopic. That was like I was explaining that to make a previously established point. I think when it comes to observing behavior of people who have autism, it's important to remember that that line, which is in many places, it's not a single line on a fucking gradient. It's just I don't know. It's difficult to actually group to fundamentally group what is and isn't autistic. And I think that's just an important thing to recognize when we're discussing the behavior of autistic people as if it's such a fundamental thing.
This is absolutely true.
That's what I was trying to say. And I made that point to prove another point, and I don't remember what that other point was.
Sorry, but yeah, it's just, and there's just language that you hear that is this kind of boiled down, these boiled down ideas that can in fact come from a bunch of different places. You'll hear a lot of people say like, oh, well, we're all a little bit autistic, aren't we? They'll say that because someone says, oh, I'm autistic, and they want to say to that autistic person, well, you're not really all that different. They're assuming that the autistic person is insecure about being autistic, that they're unhappy,
yeah.
And that by self-identifying as autistic, that they're kind of inherently degrading themselves. And that is a really big problem.
I've witnessed that myself on numerous occasions, and that is very bad, obviously. I think what I was trying to say when I said we're all a little bit autistic, I didn't finish what I was saying. What I really meant was that this idea of what autism is based on a set of characteristics that are exhibited by everyone to varying degrees. And as I said multiple times, because I talk in circles, it's the line is difficult to draw. So I was talking about observing the behavior of people with autism, and I meant to acknowledge what you were saying, as it's everybody has a very different experience with autism, and to certain variables, you know what I mean? Like it's like a video game with like different stats, you know what I mean? Like everybody has different like levels of everybody's affected to varying degrees by certain characteristics, and it's important to not try to it's important to not generalize. And what I said about people with autism, I guess, like not doing the performative bullshit, I can acknowledge that that's not the case with all autistic people. It's just statistically, at least in my experience, it's it's a pattern that I've noticed. That was the whole point.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say that
Absolutely.
I noticed there's a lot of patterns within autistic people, but it's also not like all autistic people are driven down the same exact path. It's just that patterns exist when people have common experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's completely true and valid. And I'm glad you said it, actually.
I'm rhetorically ineffective. I should quit this. I'll genuinely like have a really good point and I'll do a good job explaining it, but it takes me so fucking long to like actually get the message across. And it takes I make multiple mistakes that I have to correct throughout the whole thing. And the final product is a well constructed argument, but people have to sit through so much of my fucking stuttering and misspeaking and just really poor choice of words that it makes me I don't think I should be allowed to have a voice like on political topics.
That's why I actually prefer essay writing and talking through text. And it does also have to do with that trauma of being misunderstood or having something that I didn't understand that I was earnestly asking about and having people think I was making a statement that I really wasn't. And I think this is really, really common, where that trauma of being misunderstood just makes a lot of autistic people really prefer speaking. Like, a lot of us hate phone calls. This obviously doesn't apply to 100% of us, as the point that was just made. But it's really common. It's a lot of the reason why so many of us are chronically online. That, and we can find groups of people that we're truly similar to easier online. But yeah, it's a thing. It fucking sucks.
I think I often like I don't have a great understanding of why it is that people hear certain terms that are just like, it's like when you say certain things, they just like raise like 50,000 red flags in people's heads and they immediately jump to conclusions. Like the moment you say certain things that aren't even like statements, that are just like words, like literally. And it's very, very, it's just very, very frustrating for me, somebody who is very, very passionate about getting my message across and have to constantly jump through these fucking hoops. And I said earlier, people are fucking stupid and they jump to conclusions and they're not capable of actually processing a well-constructed argument. But I think it's a combination of people's fucking stupidity and lack of understanding of logic and ethics, as well as my inability to deliver a good, like, straight, like, linear statement. Because I always talk in circles. I always fuck up everything that I have to say. And I'm terrible. I'm horrible at speaking. I'm unable to improvise. And I shouldn't be doing podcasts about politics. It's morally wrong for me to do political podcasts.
Well, hey, I'm here to say everything that you just said, but better. You have me.
Yeah, and it sounds like an argument oftentimes when you listen to
it does.
It sounds like I make a statement and then you basically repeat the statement in much better terms. Yeah. And then it sounds like what you're saying is contrary to what I'm saying, but you just fucking picked the seeds out of the fucking thing. I don't know where I was going with that analogy.
Yeah. Yeah. So don't quit just yet.
No.
Yeah.
I'm going to quit.
And I think that
I'm impulsively deciding to quit, and I definitely will not make another podcast in the next 24 hours where I'm confident again. I'm definitely not like, I don't go through mood swings that impact my decision making. Not at all. It's not the case whatsoever.
Gotta love it. I think that we should wrap it up, but one more thing that I want to touch on that it irks me a little bit, is this idea of the keyboard warrior that is so stigmatized. And I will say that a lot of that stigma is completely valid, of just complete morons with no idea what they're talking about,
Yeah, we went to a whole
engaging,
school full of them.
yeah, and engaging in discourse that they have no place engaging in online in like comment sections. Um, and that is really fucked up, and people need to be much more mindful about what they're putting out onto the internet. But I will say that it's the least anxiety provoking way for me to engage in discussions that I feel have real importance. And a lot of that is that just that trauma and that fear, because I know that when I'm talking, I'm inevitably gonna say something that's gonna be misunderstood. And that is just terrifying to me. And that's why autistic people frequently over explain things. That's really will write an essay when it could have taken a couple of sentences, just out of this being terrified of being misunderstood. Um, but I think that there's more potential to just discourse through text in on forums, stuff like that. That isn't this terrible keyboard warrior idea where someone gets dogpiled even if they were actually technically correct just because the majority of people in that space disagree with them, that kind of thing.
That's what I love about like BreadTube and shit. Like I understand it's the meme that BreadTube is just a fucking cesspool, and it's true. But that's why I love like the communities for people like fucking Keffels or Xanderhall or Vosh or whoever the fuck it is. Even though almost all of those creators, like I don't even fucking agree with on the majority of things. Like their communities are always full of they attract communities that are willing to just sit down and have a good faith discussion about fucking anything without not even necessarily like without hostility. The absence of hostility isn't even like the an appeal. It's just people that are actually want to deconstruct your talking points and break down things logically and morally. And I think if the more spaces like that exist, the better a place the internet is.
Yeah.
For like political discourse.
And I do think that for me, there is that extremely strong sense of justice I have in that impulsivity where I'm like always seeking something that's going to like to exercise my brain, to like give me that hit of dopamine. And I think over the years, in even engaging with people who are arguing with me in bad faith, I think I've learned a ton and am really a better person because of it. Just even like and having discussions where I realize I'm wrong, where even if I don't admit it in the moment, I'll change my behavior going forward because I know like, oh, that person really had a point. And I think that it can be really toxic on this surface level, but it's something that I've personally really found a lot of benefit from. And I may be a tiny minority, but that's my 2 cents.
My 2 cents is read.
No.
Read Wikipedia.
I can't read.
This is
okay,
this. I understand the Wikipedia professor fucking stereotype. Whatever. I don't give a fuck. The majority of Wikipedia is overall a pretty good source of information, especially highly discussed topics. And believe it or not, Wikipedia articles are actually pretty well, in a pretty good way, held accountable and just as to their unbiased perspective and just delivering straight like accuracy with their information. And I genuinely believe that reading Wikipedia has made me a much better like actor in the political world and has just given me a much better understanding of politics. And something that I've liked to do, this is the best part about reading Wikipedia, is you learn other places to learn shit.
Yes.
Like Wikipedia has inspired me to read multiple like nonfiction books or just like history books and shit, or just to like look into like more like theory and just like actual like literature. And it's a really great gateway to information, and also if you want straight information, you can straight unbiased information. You can get it all from Wikipedia, pretty much.
Yes.
And if you want to hear a more hear from a more what's the word? I don't want to say biased because that sounds weird. It's like it has a negative connotation. But like if you wish to consume information from a particular perspective, not even just someone who agrees with you, just from a particular perspective, Wikipedia is a great gateway to those perspectives. And
Yes.
I highly recommend using Wikipedia to figure out, where to learn. It's a great fucking place. Donate. Be the 2% who donates to Wikipedia.
Demigloom. I'm one of the
What?
2% that donates to Wikipedia.
You donate to Wikipedia?
Yeah, I donate $2 every month because I'm really poor, but I still value Wikipedia so fucking much. And I agree 1,000% with everything that you just said. And I also, part of the reason why Wikipedia is so just extraordinary is it is this massive library of information that is accessible to anyone. Anyone who has access to the internet, if they're not in North Korea, can
It's a public utility at this point.
Yeah, they can go on Wikipedia and have this library, just of 1,000 Library of Alexandrias, all in one website. And I think accessibility of information is one of the things that I value the most. It's one of the reasons why I hate paywalls on like academic articles so much. Even if that money ends up going to fund this academic research, I think that it's pointless for you to do all of this writing and all of this researching to make an article.
Gatekeep the information.
Yeah. I think it's pointless. I think it defeats the purpose. And that's why I love Wikipedia so much. And that's why I donate. And I'm such a big Wikipedia person, and I hate that academic spaces have demonized Wikipedia so much. Because they're just fucking wrong. And I don't know if this is some corrupt, I want all of this information to be gatekept kind of thing, or if it is just a concern about like academic integrity, like anyone can post to Wikipedia. But it's really misguided because Wikipedia is pretty rigorously moderated. And people will.
I tried to edit the Wikipedia page of our school. I may or may not have wrote something a little bit funny on there, and like two minutes later, it was like removed. Like, yeah. I don't know how their system works, but like literally, like our school was like small. Like nobody gives a shit about that Wikipedia page. It's like there's these weird Wikipedia editors. I don't know how it works, but apparently they get some kind of like notification that some random ass page was edited, and if they see some dumb shit on there, they immediately correct it.
Yeah.
There's like 50,000 fucking nerds sitting in their basements that will just immediately correct like bullshit that people put on there. Here's one thing I will criticize about Wikipedia. Some articles about specific people are often but really biased. Like not like big historical figures, right? Like the page for fucking George Washington is not going to be like super biased, but like if there's like a really small, like particularly like musicians and entertainers and stuff like that, it's oftentimes there's a lot of bias regarding the information presented about them because people want to put them in a positive or negative light. I think a big part of that is because people who are entertainers, the people who make their Wikipedia pages are fans of them or people that want to slander them. Yeah. And that's, you know what I mean? Obviously with Wikipedia, the more obscure the article, the more critical of the information you should be. I don't want to tell anybody to just uncritically consume everything from Wikipedia because there are a lot of there is bullshit on Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. Anyone can edit it. It's true. There is bullshit on there. But for the majority of like major articles, like big topics that a lot of people are researching or looking into, it's an incredibly accurate place, and they cite sources and shit too. The more sources they cite, or you could see where they get their information.
Yeah.
And if it's an article about a fucking YouTuber with like 50,000 subscribers and there's no sources cited, maybe be a little more critical of that than the page about communism, which cites like 50,000 fucking academic sources and is constantly moderated by unbiased fact checkers.
Yeah. And I think that those smaller articles about people and such rely much more on just people who want to write about it.
Yeah.
And rely much more on just God, what's the word? Anecdotes. Yeah. I said that with really weird emphasis. Anecdotes. It relies much more on anecdotes. And there's just a lot less information that can be cited. And for that reason, I definitely say, like, take everything that you read there with a grain of salt, and if something seems off, check the sources. Or just don't go around preaching it like it's the gospel.
Yeah, for sure.
I fucking love Wikipedia, dude.
Wikipedia is great. Wikipedia should be government funded.
Yes! Yes! Yes, except...
I mean, okay, so like fundamentally, I believe that things like that should be government funded, but I don't trust our government right now.
That's exactly what I was
Making
about to
that
say.
Clear. Yeah, I don't trust Sleepy Joe.
I think state media is always just extremely perilous. There's people, especially tankies, who argue in favor of state media. Like, I've had someone cite Chinese state media about why the Tiananmen Square massacre didn't actually happen. And it's like, dude, can you not see the conflict of interest here? Come on. It's right in front of your face. But yeah, I think I at least in our current society, and I can't say what'll happen in the future and if we'll get a perfect, completely uncorrupt government in the future, but I think it's better for it to be crowdfunded, and more likely for it to be, what's the word? Have integrity. It's more likely for it to have integrity. Anyway, we should.
You know what? Fuck that. I take back when I said that should be government funded. Now that I think about it, I'm having a very hard time envisioning a scenario where that works well.
Yeah.
That's not very hypothetical, like beyond the next century of history hypothetical.
It's the kind of thing where, like, I'd love for tax money to go to it, but it has to be it has to be the kind of thing where it's a third party and it can't have any possibility of being influenced by the government. That in and of itself is just a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
And for those purposes, crowdfunding ends up working best.
That's a really sad reality.
Yeah, it is.
That we have to rely on crowdfunding.
It is.
But yeah.
And I wish it could be better, but I don't see it happening. Yeah. Sad. But I think we should wrap up. We've gone on for quite a while. I'm tired.
Yeah. Where can our listeners find you?
You can find me on Twitter. I don't check Twitter. But it's at Felonious Ferris.
Twitter was better with you.
It just kind of it's too many tweens, and I don't like the way it's being managed right now. On the other hand,
you don't say that we aren't big Elon Musk fans.
Yeah. Even if he's autistic, Elon Musk is one of the bad ones. Anyway, you can also find me on Tumblr. I only post about anime on Tumblr, so yeah, but Tumblr is actually a pretty good social media site. It's just that it only really works for fandom stuff. But yeah, love Tumblr. I am also on YouTube. I haven't uploaded anything. I dream that one day I will upload, but we'll see. And I may eventually make other social media. Who knows? But for now, just come and interact with me. I love you, and I want to hear from you.
Just look up Demigloom on shit. This is where I want you guys to be. This is the best thing that I'm currently working on. The Issue Crew podcast, maybe the Issue Crew podcast is as good as this. I like this better, though. Check out the Issue Crew. Look up Demigloom on whatever the fuck you're on. Bye.
Bye-bye.